Hello, my name's Paul Borman. I'm an executive coach to some of the most senior people in the world and a business psychologist. In this online program, I'll share with you some of the common issues that my clients bring to me and the advice that I give them to help overcome these issues. There'll be written exercises to complete, and most importantly, actions to take back in your workplace. So a really common issue that people come to talk to me about is handling underperformance in their direct reports. Maybe it's not massive underperformance of somebody who maybe needs to exit the organisation. Often it's a bit more subtle than that. Somebody who isn't quite up to mark. Sometimes it's not that there's a major issue. The person isn't desperately underperforming. They might just not be at the right level for the current challenge. Maybe the organisation or the job has grown beyond their abilities. The person might be working really hard and trying their best, but they're still not quite making it. And people are very reticent to have the conversation and sometimes don't know how to have the conversation. Then there are other people who think they have approached it. And I say to them, does the person know that they have an issue? And the answer is, yes, I told them, and it made no difference. For some reason, people seem to think that all they need to do to handle poor performance is go to the person and tell them there's a problem. But in my experience, that is nowhere near enough. Well, it's not a magic wand. I have found that the more successful conversations ensure that 4 topics are properly covered. Now, these 4 topics are firstly, a description of the problem. Secondly, empathy with the other person's position and point of view on that problem. Thirdly, the solution to the problem. And finally, very importantly, the consequence of either solving the problem or failing to solve it. So let's talk about these 4 topics in a bit more detail. Describe, empathise, solution and consequence. All 4 of these topics really need to be covered in a successful performance conversation. They don't necessarily have to be done in that order, and they certainly don't need to be done in a way where you're the person doing all the speaking. However, all 4 do need to be covered. Clearly, the first one, description, means that both of you need to understand what the problem is. So let's use a kind of example just to get our heads around this. Let's assume that the problem is your direct report is behind on a project that they're leading. They're a project manager and they're several months overdue on the delivery. Now, you don't need to go in at the beginning of the process and say, here's the problem, you're late. Most of the time, you'll be able to do it through a question. How's the project going? And it'll be quickly apparent that everybody agrees that there is an issue. The problem is that the next thing that almost always happens is that the person you're talking to will start to list out the reasons why the project is late. It's because Department X are rubbish at delivering their bit. You know it's because a couple of my people have been off sick. There is always going to be a reason that your direct report is going to want to articulate for the poor performance. The unhelpful dynamic, however, is one where the boss keeps on feeling the need to explain the problem, and the direct report keeps on feeling the need to give the mitigating circumstances. The boss keeps on thinking, this person doesn't understand what's going wrong here. And the subordinate thinks, my boss just does not understand the real world. This can go on almost indefinitely, unless you're really fully able to do the second topic, empathise. The person you're talking to really needs to understand that you genuinely see the world from their point of view and understand the issues that they are facing. Until they can hear from your lips that you really understand how difficult it has been to get resources from that difficult department or cope with the fact that there are a few people down on your headcount, until they know that you really understand and empathise with that, you're always going to be stuck. If you can allow them to realise that you fully empathise, you're then still able to say, and yet, we are still late, and that is still a problem. Once you've got to that stage, though, of having understood the mitigating circumstances, yet still acknowledged there's a problem, only then can you begin to work out what the solution might be. Once again, this could be in the form of you giving a solution, but in an ideal world, the person can come up with a solution themselves. In this case, the solution may be to do with how the person handles the difficult department? Are they being assertive enough? Are they being demanding enough? Have they built the relationships well enough to get that department to cooperate? What have they done about the fact that there are a few people down? Have they sought help where needed? All of these things might constitute the solution that you agree together. And then we come to the final topic, the one that is really quite important, but people are very reticent to go there. That is, what is the consequence of that solution being implemented or not? What's the positive consequence, but also what's the negative consequence? The positive consequence might well be, well, there's this really good impact on the bottom line of our company. It might also be a personal one. The positive impact of you getting this project back on time is that you get offered equally big projects in the future. But there's a negative consequence too. The negative consequence might be that you don't get given such opportunities in the future, or maybe that somebody else will get brought in to run the project for you. Until people are clear that there are real consequences, they may not be motivated enough to pick up the solution that you've agreed. Now, making sure that you cover all 4 of these topics won't always work, but I'm sure that missing out one of them really increases your chances of failure. Having a difficult conversation about performance isn't always easy. But try picking a conversation that you know you can structure around describe, empathise, solution and consequence, and then monitor its effectiveness. There's room in your worksheet to plan for this conversation, so good luck with it.